Finally, Hongfujin Precision Electronics Chengdu Co Limited announced it would close down. On September 30th, this Foxconn subsidiary in Hengyang City will officially shut its doors. The announcement was calm and measured, citing the impact of the market environment and strategic measurements from key clients. In simpler terms, Foxconn followed Apple's lead and moved its production capacity to places where labor is cheaper. The company, which landed in Hengyang in 2012, was once a shining star. At its peak, it had an annual output value of over 12 billion yuan and set a logistics record by shipping directly from Hengyang to the US in 72 hours. For 5 consecutive years, it topped Hengyang's tax list. At its peak, it employed 20,000 to 30,000 workers. However, after industrial upgrades and the installation of robotic arms, the workforce reduced to 14,000 by 2020. As Apple's orders shifted to Vietnam, the workforce further shrank to fewer than 5,000 in 2023. In 2024, Apple completely removed the company from its supply chain, leaving only 236 employees to handle asset liquidation and machine maintenance. By the end of this month, September 30th, even these last 236 workers will lose their jobs. A survey shows that only 28% of employees over 45 in the original factory found new employment, and the local housing vacancy rate has now soared to 44%. The Foxconn that was once warmly welcomed and offered land at no cost has now ultimately departed.
On August 28th, Foxconn's Hongfujin Precision Industry Hengyang Co Limited issued a notice stating that due to market environment impacts and adjustments in key clients' business strategies, the company no longer has enough orders to support its operations and will officially cease operations on September 30th. In response to the shutdown decision, the company offered 2 options for employees. One is to prioritize relocation to factories in the cities of Wuhan, Shenzhen, Huizhou, and other locations based on employees' preferences. The second is for employees who do not wish to relocate. The company will terminate their labor contracts in batches according to actual production conditions and provide legal compensation. At its peak, the company employed 30,000 workers. Now, only 236 employees are covered by social insurance. The total employee number, including security, cleaning, and part-time workers, is estimated to be only 300 to 400. As things stand, most workers are unlikely to relocate, as the majority of them come from Hengyang City and nearby rural areas. It's improbable that they would go work in other cities. Even if they were transferred to factories in Wuhan, Shenzhen, or Huizhou, they would likely quit soon after, because these factories have already undergone large-scale automation upgrades by Foxconn, and there would be no work for them. It wouldn't take long before they proactively resign. The shutdown of this factory not only affected the future of several hundred workers, but also became a window into the changing landscape of China's manufacturing industry. In an interview with Western media, a worker from a labor agency in Hengyang named Tian explained that in recent years, many foreign trade factories have been closing down. As a labor intermediary, her company is also facing difficulties and at risk of shutting down. She said, "The problem now is not that factories can't find workers, but that there is an oversupply of workers and not enough positions. Many factories here have shut down one after another. Even large companies like Hongfujin can't keep going, let alone small and medium-sized factories." Mr. Pei, who has worked in mechanical maintenance at Hongfujin for years, commented, "The company's handling of the situation is indeed more thoughtful than many Chinese companies. Although they promised to provide legal compensation, since I'm older, it's not easy to start over in Shenzhen or Huizhou. Staying in Hengyang, however, makes it difficult to find suitable work." In Mr. Pei's view, the compensation may provide short-term relief from financial pressure, but concerns about future livelihood and his children's education remain. A netizen shared that his nephew worked at Foxconn in Hengyang. At its peak, the company was thriving, with a factory of over 10,000 people, occupying half of the industrial zone. In recent years, due to economic factors, the company has been laying off workers, and now it's shutting down. My nephew speaks of leaving with great reluctance. Some believe the factory has done its best. One said, "At least they didn't directly lay off employees, but offered other job opportunities. That's better than many other factories." One netizen commented, "Terry Gou, Foxconn's founder, said he's feeding the people in mainland China. I think he's right. In the early 2000s, Foxconn's wages and benefits were the best among factories in China. Factories that rely on Foxconn orders have higher unit prices than other factories. Now the industry is indeed struggling. Orders are fewer, costs are higher, and many factories are barely holding on. If even a giant like Foxconn can't survive, smaller factories have a much harder time." The Hongfujin Hengyang factory was established in September 2012 and is an important subsidiary of Foxconn Technology Group. It had a total investment of $99 million with a registered capital of $38 million, located in the Baishashou Industrial Park in Yanfeng District, Hengyang City. At that time, the project was one of Hunan Province's key foreign investment projects, primarily responsible for component processing and partial assembly for brands such as Apple. Its annual output value once surpassed 20 billion yuan. In fact, rumors of layoffs at the Hengyang factory had circulated as early as 2023. By 2024, many of the molds in the Hengyang Foxconn Industrial Park had been packed up, with some reportedly being sent to India. Some production lines had already been shut down, and the factory was noticeably quiet. Around the same time, Foxconn invested over $700 million in India in 2023 to build the factory. And its factory in Vietnam also expanded by hiring thousands of workers, with Hengyang's orders being clearly diverted. The announcement of the closure now signifies a further shrinkage of Foxconn's production network in central China. Mr. Wang, a professor at the School of Economics at Zhongnan University of Economics and Law, analyzed that Foxconn's withdrawal from Hengyang is part of the trend of China's manufacturing industry moving abroad in recent years. On one hand, countries like India and Vietnam are actively offering tax incentives and policy support, taking over some of the electronics manufacturing capacity. On the other hand, the domestic electronic consumer market in China has become saturated, and the pressure of overcapacity continues to increase. More critically, Apple has gradually shifted its production lines abroad, requiring Foxconn to follow suit, and Foxconn naturally cannot refuse. Mr. Wang further pointed out that Foxconn's withdrawal from Hengyang has continued to weaken the region's original manufacturing and export advantages. The closure of Foxconn's Hengyang plant reflects the global redistribution of industrial chains, and the Chinese authorities should be alert to this trend. Foxconn, a giant in the global electronics manufacturing services (EMS) industry, once had its factories in Shenzhen, Zhengzhou, and Chengdu cities brightly lit, with millions of workers at its peak, essentially creating an industrial empire. However, today, this EMS giant is undergoing unprecedented growing pains during its transformation. In recent years, Foxconn has been actively advancing automation and intelligence transformation. Robots have replaced manual labor to reduce costs. In July 2015, Foxconn's factories in China had 50,000 operational industrial robots. In May 2016, the company replaced manual labor with robots, reducing its workforce by 64,000 people. Foxconn is also using NVIDIA's Groot Mimic blueprint for synthetic motion control generation to accelerate its robot training process. In his keynote speech at Computex 2025, Foxconn chairman Liu Yangwei pointed out that as the national economy develops, low GDP labor is gradually depleting. The integration of AI and robots will become the new solution, with generative AI and intelligent robots automatically filling labor gaps. This means that global manufacturing is undergoing an intelligent revolution led by AI and robotics. Rising labor costs, changing market demand, and policy adjustments are all pushing manufacturing companies to reassess their production strategies. The closure of Foxconn's Hengyang factory is just a microcosm of this transformation. Foxconn's industrial adjustments go beyond replacing manual labor with machines. They also involve the reorganization of global production networks. In recent years, Foxconn has been moving its production lines from China to countries like Vietnam, India, and the United States. The Financial Times reported on April 25th that although China remains the primary production base for Apple products, the ongoing US-China trade tension has accelerated Apple's efforts to diversify its supply chain. According to insiders, Apple plans to move all iPhone assembly for the US market to India by as early as next year. This move aims to shift the production of over 60 million iPhones sold annually in the US to Indian factories by the end of 2026. Apple's shift of its production base is faster and more thorough than investors generally anticipated. The complete relocation of assembly operations to India marks a continued increase in Apple's trust in India's manufacturing system and a rapid reduction in reliance on China's production capacity. According to a report from Canalys, in the first half of 2025 alone, India's iPhone production reached an astonishing 23.9 million units, a 53% year-on-year increase. In the total global iPhone production, India, which once had a negligible share, now accounts for 16 to 17%. In June 2025, Foxconn's first shipment of iPhone 17 parts to India passed customs. From this moment, Apple's global supply chain entered a historic turning point. The key breakthrough lies in the shared New Product Introduction or NPI process. For the first time last year, Indian factories participated in the NPI for iPhone 16, and this year, iPhone 17 was more deeply integrated into the front-end R&D, ending China's decade-long exclusive privilege. It is reported that Apple has expanded iPhone production at 5 factories in India, with Tata Group's Super Factory in Hosur and Foxconn's Smart Park in Bangalore setting new benchmarks for Indian manufacturing. Sources reveal that within the next 2 years, Tata Group's factories are expected to take on half of India's iPhone production. This not only signals a rise in the influence of local Indian companies in the global tech supply chain, but also reflects Apple's deepening trust in India's manufacturing capabilities. Sources also reveal that Apple plans to produce the iPhone 17e in India, a model set to launch early next year and replace this year's iPhone 16e. The company has already begun discussions on the production plan for iPhone 18, with preliminary preparations expected to begin in the coming weeks. The rise of Made in India manufacturing has been supported by the Indian government's policy, including subsidies and tax incentives, attracting more tech giants to invest in strengthening India's position as a global manufacturing hub. Apple's shift in production focus from China to India will undoubtedly lead to reduced orders for Chinese factories, affecting local employment and the economy. However, while India will handle the production of the US version of iPhone 17, the Chinese version sold in China will still be assembled in China. Despite this, China's exclusive privilege in Apple's supply chain is diminishing, as it faces growing competition from emerging manufacturing centers like India. On September 2nd, Apple officially announced that its 2025 fall product launch event will take place on September 9th at Apple Park in Cupertino, with the theme Awe-Dropping. The event is expected to unveil the new iPhone 17 series, including an upgraded base model, Pro versions, and an all-new version that is thinner than any previous iPhones. This marks Apple's shift from performance competition to millimeter-level innovation. An upgraded version of the Apple Watch is also expected to be released. The market is eagerly anticipating the upcoming Apple launch event. As Apple's new iPhone 17 enters its peak production period, Foxconn in both Hengyang City and Henan Province have launched an intense recruitment drive so as to meet the staggering production target of 85 million units and ensure the timely and sufficient delivery of this profitable flagship product. On August 29th at noon, the sun was scorching hot in Shenzhen, yet the Foxconn recruitment center in Longhua district was bustling with activity. Buses filled with job seekers arrived one after another. As the doors opened, the crowd surged toward the entrance. These were temporary workers recruited through agencies, eager to start their jobs before the peak hiring season ends. A young girl in the line chatted with someone nearby, saying, "We just came from Guannan subdistrict. The pay is a bit higher here." She was right. Working in the Longhua Park is indeed more valuable, with the potential to earn over 6,000 yuan a month, which is good money for many people. Due to reduced orders, the wages at the factory in Guanlan subdistrict are lower, at 24 yuan per hour. This amounts to about 5,000 yuan a month. One agency staff remarked that this year's recruitment effort at the factory wasn't as lively as in previous years. According to agency staff, the peak hiring period at Foxconn is very short, because they hire workers so quickly. The peak is almost over now, and recruitment has shifted to a quota system. The department handling the back covers only hires 20 people a day, and the assembly line for Apple iPhones hires even fewer. Only 10 spots available per day. Think about it. With such limited spots, how many people are scrambling for them? One intermediary in Shenzhen said, "Personally, I feel that the factory's hiring situation isn't as good this year. In the past, you could easily recruit many people just by walking around the recruitment center area, but now it's definitely quieter." That being said, Foxconn employees in other factories are not having it as easy. Workers in Zhengzhou City said, "We're working overtime every day. It's so busy we barely have time to catch our breath." Foxconn in Zhengzhou has brought in about 200,000 workers. For some production lines, daily working hours have been extended to 11 hours. One worker posted on social media, "The phone on the assembly line keep rolling forward. The machines never stop, and neither do we." At the high-paying hourly worker positions in the 8 major streets factory of Zhengzhou, the hourly wage is 26.5 yuan. Assuming 260 working hours a month, the monthly salary comes to 6,890 yuan. Regular hourly workers earn slightly less, 24.5 yuan per hour, for a monthly salary of 6,370 yuan. Interestingly, there is also a bonus for return fee workers. After working 90 days, they can earn an additional 8,000 yuan, bringing the total monthly earnings to between 19 and 22,000 yuan. However, compared to last year, the compensation has actually decreased a bit. Last year, the high-paying hourly workers made 27 yuan per hour. With 280 working hours, their monthly salary was 7,840 yuan. The Zhengzhou Foxconn Labor Union Recruitment WeChat account posted an announcement stating that August 29th was the last day of the peak recruitment period for Zhengzhou Foxconn A business group, and by August 30th, wages began to drop significantly. Many workers have shared their daily experiences on social media platforms.
2025年8月28号
On the morning of August 28, 2025 at 7 a.m., the flow of people under the overpass at the K area entrance. This is just the tip of the iceberg at Foxconn, and the flow of people has been increasing in recent days. This year's peak workforce is expected to exceed 200,000. This has provided many job opportunities for our big Henan province. However, some industry insiders bluntly stated, when orders come in, everyone scrambles to hire. But when the off-season arrives, factories often lay off workers or reduce working hours to control costs. Some workers even face the risk of unemployment. This instability further increases the pressure on workers' lives. With the September 10th launch event just around the corner, the pre-sale is expected to begin on September 12th. The real performance of the iPhone 17 will soon be revealed, and the market will provide the most honest answer. It is worth noting that Apple Inc. has been accelerating its efforts to move its supply chain out of China, facilitating Foxconn's expansion of iPhone production lines in India, making India and Vietnam key hubs for Apple's production capacity outside of China. Sun Kuo-chiang, a professor of international affairs and business at Nanhua University in Taiwan, stated that Apple's expansion of manufacturing in India is driven by multiple strategic considerations. These include supply chain resilience, geopolitical factors, cost efficiency, and market potential, all pointing to a deep strategic shift. Politically, this move by Apple also responds to the trend of decoupling from China in supply chains, driven by the US government and Wall Street investors. Given that the US is the bellwether of global supply chains, if Apple's exit from China is successful, it could prompt other international brands to follow suit. Moreover, Apple has started to enforce the use of automated production lines in the supply chain. Foxconn has built automated lines, doubling efficiency, and even Apple's CEO, Tim Cook, has visited to see them. Previously, US President Donald Trump ordered Apple to adopt automated production and bring manufacturing back to the US. Apple's move away from labor-intensive production methods is another significant blow to China.